Hello, welcome to another episode of Sheer Motivation Podcast. If this is your first time watching or you're a returning viewer, make sure you stop, hit that like and subscribe button. And if you don't have time to watch on YouTube, just make sure you tune in on Spotify, or iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. Today I'm here with my friend Jessica. Yes.
I'm the friend.
Yeah, she's the friend. So Jessica and I have known each other. It's coming up on 10 years.
Is it?
It's coming up on 10 years.
It was 2015, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it
Yeah.
is.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh my gosh. I just realized that.
Yes. So, people listening and viewing, Jessica and I met at a job that we had, and we started off as co-workers, and then I slowly chiseled my way into her life, and she's been stuck with me after all of the chiseling took place.
I couldn't shake her. I tried. No.
And so,
She kept coming back.
Right, in 10 years, just about speaks for itself. So, that gives you an idea. Now, one of the things that I love about our relationship is that we're different. We're different in a lot of ways, but we always come together and we're able to just see each other's perspective without attacking each other. And we've got on each other's nerves, and we've never been vicious to each other. We've never taken it personal. We've got out what we've had to say, and then we've been able to build and grow our friendship since then. And one of the things that I really loved is our long conversations that we've had, and I've enjoyed your perspective. I walk away and be like, yeah, that ain't so bad after all. Yeah, what she said. So I love that. So I wanted, and I asked her to come up here, and she was like, okay, I'll do it. So I was like, okay. So today's topic is called Life and Love After Divorce. Okay, so for those that don't know, if you've been living under a rock, okay, divorce is considered the legal dissolution of a marriage by a court order or another competent party. Okay, so we're not talking about like, just that was my boyfriend, that was my girlfriend for about 6 months. We're talking about the real unity of marriage and, the dissolution of marriage. And I just wanted to dig in specifically to that place where people, you may be listening, our listeners, might be right on the cusp of a divorce, considering a divorce, or actively going through the murky waters of a divorce. And just that whole process and the stages. And for everybody, it's different.
Right.
So I'll start with what I do know. Arriving to a place of wanting or going through with a divorce is really tough. And for different people, it's different reasons that lead to it. But when you're in that space and you find, for me, I know I was just shocked for about the first few months. I was like, okay, because for our listeners, I was married for about 10 years. I went through a separation and divorce. And so what I will say is, anyone that's listening, going through, there is peace on the other side. But
you will survive.
You will survive. Okay. But we're going to talk about getting there. So the first thing is, I would recommend, if you can fight for it, get in the ring and fight. Do all you can.
Yeah.
And when you feel like you at your tail end, your last breath, fight a little bit more. For me, I did that, but it was always this thing of, did I do enough? Did I communicate enough? Did I try hard enough? Was I patient enough? Did I wait long enough? It was all of these sort of questions that I wrestled with. And so I did do therapy for me. Everybody doesn't need therapy, but I did therapy. And one of the things that she said to me was, when you're in that space, right, ask yourself, did we communicate enough? Did we fight hard enough? Did we wait long enough? Can you look back over your marriage and see this sort of evolution take place? And what you did to put one foot in front of the other to try to make things work.
Right.
And I feel like I did, but it's still, I would hear people say marriage feels like a death.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it felt like for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know you have some experience with life and love and things like that. But have you ever been through a relationship where you felt like the end was like a death?
Oh, of course. And just like you, I was married before, and we were actually together for 22 years, but we were only married of that for 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, but during the time before the 5 years, we actually got it before, and married.
Mm-hmm.
We were living like a married couple, even though we weren't technically married.
Okay.
So,
do you recommend living together before marriage?
honestly, I would say no, even though I did it. It's one of those things where it's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Oh.
So if anybody
Not do as I say and not as I do.
right, because if anybody would ask me, just like you just did, I would say to a woman, no.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Uh-huh.
Because I was there during the time when we weren't married and then we were married, and honestly, I didn't really see any difference. And let me tell you why I say that. Because I was thinking before we got married, that once we got married, things would get better somehow. Like he would miraculously change, or things that he was holding, maybe he may have been holding back during our living like that versus getting married would make, and then maybe I would feel more comfortable now, so things within me would change, but nothing changed.
And I think that's normal. We as women, we be like, okay, well, once we get married,
right.
I remember a guy friend said to me one time, he was older and we worked together years ago, and he said, the one thing you need to know is when you say I do, you're saying from this day forward, I do. If nothing else changes and everything stays the same from the day we're at this altar, I do.
Right.
But I think it's so natural for us to be like, well, when we get married, that's going to stop, or he's going to do better when we get married.
Right.
Nope, don't happen.
Right. And that's what I learned, that it didn't matter that we went through that thing, that marriage. We did the marriage thing because he was still the same person at the end, coming out of it the day after. I was still the same person. And see, I say that for me. I don't know what was in his mind 100%. I can only go off of what his actions were. And to me, nothing appeared to change for me. But it's funny because I was always the same person. It was always committed, and I was already treating the relationship, which women do. I was already treating the relationship as though we were married.
Okay.
He had 100% access to me, mind, body, and soul. From the time we were together, moved in together, had the kids, all of that, up until we divorced. I left.
And that's interesting because he was getting his boxes checked. And women, sometimes we overlook things. Or we make justifications for things and feel that, okay, well, once I become his wife, then these things will change.
Right.
So, you go through the course of a marriage, you deal with things, because listen, you're going to go through stuff in marriage. Anybody tell you that marriage is 50-50 and it's bliss? That's not accurate. I mean, there is bliss somewhere on the earth, but it ain't always going to be in your marriage.
I want to chime in on that because just knowing what I know now, yes, you are going to go through hard times, but I feel that there should be more good times and understanding and bliss than there should be the hard times. The hard times, there's things that you're not going to be able to control.
Right.
So you're going to have to go through that. But I feel like it should be maybe over 80% of the marriage should be good.
Yeah.
Like you should have this, you should be happy with who you're with. And it should be good times. You shouldn't average a catastrophe in your marriage every year or every month. You know what I mean?
Right.
It should be bliss until it's not. And then after that, it's bliss again. And those times, I feel like, in my opinion, should not be like I said, once a month or once every couple of months, or you always are finding yourselves here. You know what I mean? Where there's some sort of difficulty of something.
Right. Right.
So I just feel like, yes, they're going to come, but I feel like a majority of the marriage should be good.
And I feel like the idea and concept behind the rough times is that they bring you closer together. You guys, you weather the storm, but you come out of it with a little bit more respect for each other, with an idea, a footprint of how to handle something a little bit more efficiently. And the idea is that you come out of it together. And I agree. I mean, you should look back over the marriage, and it should be a lot of warm memories and fun times and happy moments. And you're going to have your sprinkle of, life, and sometimes life be lifing, and marriage be marriaging, but overall, and people be peopling, and so the idea is that it brings you guys closer together, but if, for our listeners or our viewers, if you're considering divorce, like I said, I would say fight until you can't fight no more. And then when you feel like you can't fight no more, fight some more, right? But then once you get to the place where you decide to go ahead and separate, I feel like for me in the beginning, the separation was, Dalena had some things Dalena needed to work on. Like, I mean, nobody's perfect, but I was just like replaying all of the things that led up to this moment. And I was absolutely torturing myself is what I was doing. So I don't recommend that.
No.
But I was replaying this and maybe if this hadn't been and this hadn't been. And I'm in no way, perfect or whatever. But I did look back and see an evolution. I saw the growth. I saw, what it was like to be a wife and help run a household and sometimes take the lead on running the household and all the things. So it's like, wow, I did these things. I see this evolution, but it was still this nagging feeling of, could I have done more? I mean, well, what if this wouldn't have happened? Well, what if that wouldn't have happened?
I hear you saying a lot that you could have done more. Did you ever wonder if when you were saying this to yourself, were you saying at the same time, could he have done more? Could he have?
When we initially separated, no.
So you were just all on yourself.
I was beating myself up
about that, not thinking about, well, could he have done something different, or could he have done more?
It wasn't until I went to therapy that I started looking at it from that perspective. Up until then, I was just constantly looking at me because I'm a person that feels like, well, everywhere I go, there I am. So I'm in this relationship, I was in this marriage. So I always tend to start with me, and I'm just like, okay, I just beat myself up a lot in the beginning.
That was kind of opposite for me because it was more like I recognized I had a part in it. It's always two people, and then it's when you come to decide to separate, it's a decision normally that both of you make.
Right.
But for me, I made that decision, but it was not a decision that I made thinking, it's all me. I knew he had things, and I knew that I had things. So I was saying that I was basically saying to him, neither one of us is perfect. I've done everything that I can. I don't see you doing anything. So I got to go.
Right.
So, I mean, that's how it was. And then after that, it was like, I didn't feel like there was any, because you know why? I think part of it was I stayed longer maybe than I should have. It was like I was going through what you were going through while I was still in the marriage towards the end, hoping and praying that, I was going to see something from him, or see something that said that he was trying, or that he cared enough,
I remember that too.
Yeah, see? And it was like, I'm still here. Why am I still sitting here and still turning my wheels, and you're not giving me anything. So I know I did everything because I sat there in that relationship, in that marriage for years with the same things happening over and over again. And he, some women are not very vocal about, particularly about what it makes them unhappy.
Yeah.
Sometimes we be like, I'm very detailed.
Sometimes we'll be like, oh, I'm not happy in this relationship. They ask you why, you like, I don't know.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But I was
because you always know.
Yeah.
Right.
He had the benefit of me actually breaking it down to him. So, okay, it's this, and this.
But sometimes I think for men, we can say we have a problem with this, and this, and they hear us, but they don't really. They hear us, but they don't know how to put a solution into effect. You know, and I when I realized, okay, this I went through a period of like 6 to 8 months where I went to work, came home, and I developed a really unhealthy relationship with alcohol, by the way. I mean, it was
always had that relationship. No.
It was really bad.
I can't blame alcohol.
It was really bad. I developed a really unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I wasn't really going out. I wasn't in a space where I wanted to meet anybody. I would just come home and sit and you know, look out the window and watch music videos on YouTube. And I was just zoned out. And it was a difficult space to be in, but it was that thing of what you said. I was hoping that he was going to double back and have all the answers.
Yep.
And suddenly the pieces were going to fall into place. And I didn't realize that maybe he just don't know how to put the pieces in place. It doesn't make him a bad man.
Right.
But sometimes our husbands are not taught how to be husbands, or they haven't seen examples of that. And we're counting on them to put solutions in place, and they have never seen it. They have no idea what it looks like. They just know, back in my day, my mama did this and my daddy did this. And, you know, back in the day, women stayed. It didn't matter. You
they
go outside,
or whatever. They were sticking it out.
So I was in that space, and I remember I was going through like a bottle of liquor a day.
Wow,
I mean, not day. I'm sorry, a week.
Okay. I was about to say, I didn't know that. You ain't never called me and say, I'm down one bottle.
Oh, girl, my kidneys would have been shot. No, my kidneys, I wouldn't be here. Not a bottle a day. I mean, a bottle a week. It was to the point where, you know how you leaving work and you're like, do I have bread at the house? Do I have lunch meat at the house? I would be going, do I have liquor at the house? Like, it was bad. It was like, that was my my side. Like, I needed alcohol. Like, that was the only thing, like, I had to look forward to.
So it sounds like you went through that after the marriage. I did go through what you're talking about, but what I'm saying is I did that while I was still in it. Because by the time I left, you know this, by the time I left, I was like, when am I getting married again?
Oh yeah, and I was just like, I ain't never doing that shit
right,
again.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You know, and by the time I left, it was like, you know, I had done all the crying, that reflection, all of that
so
stuff.
You did that while you were in.
Yes.
I did it once I was out.
Yeah, see.
And I was just like, I ain't never getting married again. Like,
see,
this, I'm fine if no man bet not ever. And, you know, that's how I felt. Like, I'm good. Like, because it was just like, I hadn't felt that level of pain since I lost my mom.
Okay.
It felt like a death.
Yep, and it does.
It was the death of a relationship, the death of the future dreams that we had, the death of the unity of our family, you know, and it was all of these things that I was like battling, but I thought about it in that moment, and I still was holding on to the fact that he's going to come bouncing along,
right,
and he's gonna get it all together,
right,
and this thing is going. And I remember praying, and I was like, well, God, have your will. If this is what you want for me, then you know what. And then we turn the page to the nasty place, and it's that really catty place, because divorce has a way of bringing out the nasty.
Oh, of course.
Yes. The nasty.
But I will say, for the record, I never did that. Like, I was never.
So you say. No, I'm just.
Right. Don't ask.
Let's get him up here and sit in the middle and find out what was really good.
Again, I think this was by the time I separated, I had done my crying. I had done what am I gonna do? You know how hard it was for me to leave. So it was like I had done all of that while I was still still in the marriage at the end. So it was like after we separated, I was okay. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, it's all up from here. You know, I'm not trying to be mean or nasty. I'm not trying, I understand because honestly, I still have respect for him.
So,
And I still cared, like because he was the father of my children, I still cared. And overall, I thought he was a good man, just not the right man for me anymore.
okay. So for our viewers and listeners, to anybody, it could be man, woman, whoever, if they're in this situation. What was the thing? Because, we always get to that cliff where we're dealing with a person and we're right on the precipice of, what was the thing that made you say, okay, I'm going to move on this. I can't sit in this space of where I'm at no longer. What was that thing that just gave you the courage to just do it and pull the plug on this? What was that conversation you were having with yourself?
He's not, what am I doing? He's not ever going to change. I've been sitting here like this, waiting for, like you said, some sort of glimpse that he cares enough not to lose his wife over these situations that I'm unhappy with him. And it was like, they never came. It never came. So I said to myself, honestly, it was just something like I woke up one morning and I was like, you know what, I'm going to start this process to move out. And it wasn't like I did it wasn't overnight, but I started the process at that time. Okay. And he knew that I started that process at that time. It wasn't like I was hiding anything or anything like that. And I was expecting, because he still had time even after that when I was like, I think we should separate or whatever. He still had time at that point to say, no. I mean, because you said you all did counseling, right?
So we did premarital counseling. We did counseling at one point during the marriage. And then once we were separated, I did counseling on my own.
Okay.
And I think the deciding factor for me was just being in that place of where, like you said, we've had conversations. You've had the benefit of knowing the bullet points. This is what's bothering. This is what's happening. This is what I'm unhappy with. These are my recommendations for solutions. And us not being able to find a common ground, then what are we doing this for?
Right.
Because this you can't be happy either because we're in the same relationship. So the decision was made. And then there was a period of time where it's starting to come into play. And the best way I can describe it is you're just on the ground, dust is flying, mud is going, and you're still finding that courage to get up on that leg and that arm. And it was like, okay, I'm going to be okay. Things started coming together in my life. I started feeling lighter. And then I said, okay, this must be the direction I'm supposed to go in. Because I felt after some time, I felt like a weight had lifted. And I was then able to focus my attention on other parts of my life that I had lost myself in. And that's where we tread over into the beauty of it, because you get the time of isolation to work on yourself, to replay things, to, just realize, okay, I was a part of this experience. What did I learn? What are my takeaways? What could have I done differently?
Yep.
What could I have done better? What are some areas that I still need to work on as far as me? So I had that time. Then I was able to focus on other things. And then there was this place of like relearning myself and what things made me happy, what things intrigued me, new hobbies. Like it was just like I was starting to look through the world through different lenses. And that's the beauty part of divorce, is because now you're armed with a whole new layer of knowledge, a whole new set of goggles. So you come out of it seeing the world through different eyes. And you suddenly look at that person like, you're not a bad person. And I don't regret this. Right. You know, I've been able to timestamp this time in my life. I've been able to learn that I can be a wife, I can be a mom. Didn't work out in this situation, but I'm still going to go on to do good things. I'm still going to be a good woman to someone. I'm still going to be possibly a wife to someone. So you start realizing, you know, going from the, oh, I ain't never, right, to, well, maybe. You know.
For me, it was like, when?
She was ready. Right. She was ready to back that thing up for a real one.
But you know, I always say this to you. I'm a relationship person. You know, I love marriage. I'm a hopeless romantic. You know, I feel like I love marriage. I love what it represents. I love being committed to one person. I love being in a committed, exclusive relationship with someone. That is not, one thing is that has not changed with me throughout this whole entire time, even when I was with him, you know, and so I kind of knew, and I tried, like I said, we were together for a long time, and I want to say probably about 50% of that time, that was me trying to hold that together, you know, and wanting to stay. Like, I had these little kid dreams, you know, oh, I want to be married to one man for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? And that's all I want is my husband, and that we're going to be together forever. So I think that's why I fought so hard for that and stayed so many years, even though it was years into it that I realized there were flags and things like that maybe me and him were not really 100% compatible. But he had so many of the things that I did like, you know.
And it's funny that you say the red flag, because I'm a red flag gravitator towards her. I don't even know if that's a word.
I mean, that means you go after the men who have red flags.
I see the red flag, I be like, woo, 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 running. Like, I just
like a
be
bull.
Yeah, I be like, ha, ha, ha. You know, I don't even care about the red flag. I just be like, well, it ain't that red. Right. Like, it might be a little orange. Right, yeah. It ain't red. It's like orangey. You know. But that's the thing, like, after you go through the experience, not only do you see things from a whole different perspective, and you're armed with a different area of knowledge, you suddenly realize, well, for me anyway, I started to realize what I needed from my partner, like the type of man that I needed, you know. And because my dad wasn't in my life growing up, and because I didn't see a whole lot of examples of husbands, I was just like trial and error, you know, like I didn't really know, like, you know, I want to be treated like this.
And that's one of the benefits for people listening that you can look forward to, is that once all of this stuff clears, you have a good most of the time, most of us will have a good idea of what you want and what you don't want. So,
wow.
Yeah, so it's like that second time around, or whenever you feel like you want to jump back into that, you're like you said, you're armed with, okay, I know what I want. I know what I'm not willing to compromise on. And I know what kind of man I want, what I want from him. I know what I want to give.
Yep. You know, I know how far I'm willing. I'm not. I know what I'm tolerating. Yep. I know how I want to love him.
Yep.
I know how I want to support him. I know how I want to be his teammate. I know what that looks like now. Yep. I know how to communicate. I'm not going to beat it in your head. I'm going to share some of the things that I desire in my partner.
Some of the things that you maybe made big issues about in your first marriage or your first relationship, as you're older now and have come out of that. I don't know about anybody else, but I thought about some of the things that made me upset in that marriage that I think about now was like completely crazy. Like, I would think about that now, like those are things that are mediocre.
Yes, so you definitely learn how to pick your battles, and things that suddenly were big deals aren't big deals. And then sometimes your first go around, things that needed to be big deals and weren't, you learn, okay, I should have been paying more attention to this. How did I miss this?
Right.
You know, and so, you know, one of the beautiful things about it is you learn so much about yourself, just in marriage in general.
Right.
And you learn what it is to be a teammate, and what it, if you go through a divorce or separation. And just because you go through a separation doesn't mean it's the end all be all. It's still hope for people that may be separated. Sometimes people can say, wait a minute, we got to figure this thing out. You know what I mean? I can't just let all this time go. And one of the things that I learned in premarital counseling was that the pastor said to us, he told my ex, he said, you know, God calls the man to die for his family. Not die, but in a metaphorical sense.
Say like in a metaphor.
Right.
Okay.
And it's really important for men to lead and provide and protect. And
you know, a lot of men these days don't like to hear that.
They don't. But
they
God,
like
that's what God called them to do.
No, I understand.
You know, they're the stronger vessel. And when you're in a marriage, it takes, God always gives vision to the man, you know, and we're the helpmeet. And sometimes when things are going wrong, it's hard for that man to slide that mirror in front of himself and say, okay, this is a me thing. Because when you go into a marriage, sometimes there's me problems and sometimes there's we problems. And for that man to say, okay, this is something I need to fix within myself. And I'm going to do that because I realize I'm going to lose this woman. And I deserve to give her my all. And I need to die to this part of myself that's not allowing us to flow the way we need to flow.
I would say that men really need to capitalize on that when, you know, good luck to the men or women who come to that realization after the fact. Because I went through that, you know, it was after the fact. You know, that
after the fact is something.
Yeah, it's like, oh, now you want to do this. Oh, now you want to listen to what's coming out of my mouth. Oh, now you want to go to counseling. I couldn't get you to go to counseling before we divorced. But now you've been without me for a certain period of time. Now all of a sudden you're doing and you're trying to do and be something or compromise the way I needed you to. And I'm gone already. And then you run that risk of the other partner it's gone.
Right.
Because that's what happened to me.
A little too much, a little too late.
Right.
And I know it was a guy I was in conversation with. I was actually at the store and we just happened to be talking. I don't even know how we got on this conversation, but he said for a man, which I know this part, he said, you know, women always have great foresight and men have great hindsight. Men, great hindsight. Not hind like behind. Like butt.
Let's change the subject.
Not like butt, but
I mean, let's talk about it.
And when they finally realize in hindsight that they lost what could have been a whole different experience, but they lost that. That's a hole in their heart that they have a really hard time replacing. So, I mean, for all the fellas, if you got a good one, you better hold on to her, okay? If she's worth fighting for, you better get in the ring, glove up, put your mouth guards in, put your Vaseline on.
That's why I say you run that risk. Like, if you don't do that while you still have a hold on her or him, then you run that risk that once they get out there and they realize and they start, because you remember, sometimes I feel like because we're in, which is, I think, something that is required, which is that selflessness. I think selflessness is required in a marriage or committed relationship.
Dying to yourself.
Yes, because once they get out and they start now, they've been so selfless the entire time, and once they've separated or got out of that situation and now they're focusing more on themselves, you run that risk. Now you're kind of coming back asking them to come on back over here and be selfless again.
Right.
You know
now that I done got comfortable and I'm in my groove.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to hear you snoring beside me every night.
I ain't got to put up with it. No.
I ain't got to listen to it, you know. And so, yeah, you know, and that's why I like what Monica said, the singer. She said, I give it all I got while I got it for you. And, you know, I give it all I got while I got it for you. And I take it and I will go through the fire. But once I'm done, I'm done. Mm-hmm. You know, once I ain't got no more to give, then I'm depleted. Yeah. So, you know, I just feel like through all of that, all of the layers of the separation, the divorce, the life after divorce, you come out with this armor on. And so that's what one of the things I want to drive home. It's not the end of the world. You're going to get through it. It's peace on the other side. Now you got to swim through some murky waters to get to the other side. And then you get into finding a whole new version of yourself. And it's a beautiful thing. It's like a second wind almost at life.
I would say, as a piece of advice I would also give, is don't come out of it. Once you get through all of that, don't come out of it holding on to what that other person did, or thinking that that's how all men are, or how all women are. That taints you so much. And I say that to say, I've seen it where, like you said, women don't want to ever get married again just because they had that bad experience from that marriage.
And what I always like to tell people, I'm not going to let anybody that I'm having a bad experience with, whether it's a friendship, a relationship, a situationship, which I'm too old for situationships. We got to know the situation before I step in it. But I'm not going to let you change the person that I'm destined to be. You know, if I feel that I've evolved to this great place in womanhood, guess what? I'm still going to be a good wife one day. I'm still going to be a great mother. I'm still going to be a career-oriented woman, and I still can have love. And just because it didn't work out before doesn't mean that going forward I can't have that.
Right.
And if you're a man and you're listening and you've invested and you've been married, and just because you didn't get it right the first time doesn't mean that you can't go on and have a good marriage with someone else, or a good wife, or a good partner, and you can still be a good partner. Even if you messed up in the last one, it's okay, as long as you learn from it and you dust yourself off.
And I would say, if you did it again and you learned from the first time, but then you got in it again and that didn't work out, it may work out the third time.
You know what? The third time, that's crazy. Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's just how I am. What I have learned from that first marriage is that I don't want to be in multiple marriages. You know, I don't want to have one of those people that's got 3 last names behind it.
But sometimes life deal you a 3 last name situation.
Thank you. That's my point. You took the words right out of my mouth. You know, that's how a different perspective I've kind of picked up. It's like, you know, you have some of us out here that stay. One of the things I learned, I'm no longer am I going to stay when I'm not happy. No longer am I going to stay and try to do something that is not going to work.
And you know what? It takes a lot of courage to put you first, especially when you got kids on your back. And you're conflicted.
Yep.
To choose yourself. And this is for the men too. If you're being a good man to that woman, if she's dogging you, or she ain't coming home, or you going through whatever and you trying to stay the course, to finally get to a place, whether you're a man, woman, or whatever, to finally choose you and say, okay, I'm waving my white flag. I deserve better.
And what did you tell me one time? You told
What did I tell you?
Right.
Oh, God.
Let me see if I can remember. What you told me one time was, you know, when you're the better version, this is along the lines, this is not verbatim because I remember, but I remember we were talking about this, and what you had said along these lines was, when you are happy and you're a better version of yourself, you are a better mother, you are a better friend, you are a better person. So, you know, if you're out there thinking now and you're teetering between, well, I don't want to leave this marriage because I don't want my kids to go through a divorce, and I don't want my kids to be dealing with two separate houses, whatever the situation may be. Think about how you're feeling now if you're even thinking about divorce. That means there's something wrong, you're not happy, and you're not your best version of yourself.
Right.
So your kids feel that. They see that. And I can test for that. When you are feeling like the marriage has gotten bad and you're in a bad situation, you snap at everybody. You're not at your best
Child, you be trying to cook food, burning up everything, blaming people.
Exactly.
If I hadn't been in the living room with you, I would have caught the grilled cheese burning.
So, you know, when you think about it, is if don't just, and I guess basically what I'm saying is, in my opinion, don't just stay because you're worried about what a divorce is going to do for your child. Worry about your attitude while you're in that marriage.
Yeah.
And what that's doing to your children, your friends, and your relationships. Because you're not happy. You're irritable. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. Your needs are not being met, and you're not a good person to be around.
Right.
We've dealt with this all the time when you be in a workplace. How many of us are in the workplace or been in a workplace where you work alongside of our fellow sisters, and you can just tell that something in their life, just either it's at home or something is making them so they're not good people to be around.
Right.
They're not fun people to be around. I'm not saying you got to be, you know, giggling all the time, but you can just tell that they are a nasty person. They're not a good person to be around.
Right. And I was so depleted. You know, I had this part of myself that was getting up every morning and I was showing up as the employee, right? I was going to work and I was giving all the patience and dedication. And then I was trying to nestle my way through this relationship. And then when it got down to the kids, I was like Nicki Minaj. I was like, you know, why you ain't do your homework? You need to put that you need to put your shoes up, and I'm tired of cleaning up after you. You know, I was just like, you know, and it was like,
like what I do,
you know, and I wasn't the best version of a mother. I wasn't taking the time to get down in their world and what did you learn in school today? What did you eat for lunch? You know, I mean, it was one point I didn't even know the teacher's name. I was like, what's your teacher name again?
Right.
I was so out of it. They had asked me, I went to school. They said, what grade is he in? I was like, wait a minute, COVID messed me up a year. Hold on, you got to give me some grades, right? I had to like think about it, like carry the one, like, because they spent that 1 year out of school messed me up. And so I wasn't showing up as the best version of the mom I wanted to be. I wasn't as nurturing. I wasn't just, you know, making food that was, you know, not with love. Like I was throwing stuff in the oven, and I mean, they ate. Don't get me wrong. Don't you know, they ate. Put that out there. I fed the kids now. But I wasn't.
As a disclaimer, no child was starved.
No child left behind. No child was starved.
No child was starved during this time frame.
Right. No child was starved or beaten excessively during this time. I mean, you know, I do believe in corporal punishment, but it wasn't abuse. But I had a very short fuse, you know, and I do feel bad about that time period. But I know that one day they'll grow up and this time will be a little bit more clear to them, and we'll be able to talk like, of course, they'll be my child, but we'll be able to talk like, okay, now you're an adult. Now I can explain some things to you. And I think they'll have an immense amount of respect for the decision, because choosing you is hard. You know,
especially if you're a selfless person, and I am.
It takes a lot to recognize, number one, this relationship is not meeting my needs. I'm not fulfilled, you know, and I've done these things to try to iron it out, and it's not working. It's getting to a toxic place. It's getting worse. And it's time to choose me so that I can still go on and be the best version of me in other areas of my life. And also I can get rid of this and stop blocking what's out there for me. You know, because sometimes we hang on to people and it's a whole somebody somewhere out there is waiting for that healed version of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we'll never get there if we just keep hanging on to the safety net of somebody that we're used to out of habit.
Like Fantasia, sometimes you gotta lose.
Oh, yeah.
To win again.
Right, but let her sing that though.
Right. You edit that part out.
No, we keeping that in.
Oh, no, right. I knew you was gonna say that. I knew it.
You can sing, girl. I'm still gonna be your friend. You my friend. I'm not gonna throw you away.
I mean, nobody said I was a singer.
These some singing mics.
Right. I mean, I know my voice probably sound real creamy.
Not creamy. What's on your mind? Food is on your mind.
Right.
Creamy. You did say it was.
I told you. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Don't this look like a chocolate bar? No, I'm joking.
Interesting.
Well, something else? No, I'm joking.
Oh Lord, let's get the couple.
That's
next
podcast,
episode,
and I'm waiting for that podcast.
Yeah, stay tuned. Oh, you want to do a little bit of lip service? This ain't Angela Yee.
Oh my God! I want to talk about I want to talk about the nitty gritty.
Okay, we can get there.
One topic we didn't talk about in relating to divorce and coming out is, realizing yourself and your sexuality.
Yeah, because and that's another thing, and the toll that it takes on your libido going through. Because I remember my friends and you in particular, a lot of y'all around me were like, "Wow, I'm excited,
right?
Sex." You know,
and I remember that you was like,
I was like, sex.
Right. You must be crazy.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm tired. I don't want to.
I'm tired. I'm getting up in the morning. I'm getting kids down the road. I'm dropping kids off.
Oh my God.
I gotta get to work. I gotta be astute.
I'm like, you don't like sex?
I'm like, sex? And you can't deprive your husband. I mean,
exactly.
I was still making the mark on average twice a week. I mean, let's just put
that was pretty decent.
And it was decent. I mean, I don't think he thought it was enough, but it was enough for me. And it was just.
But it was like, did you enjoy it though?
I enjoyed that. So.
Not now. I'm talking about back then. And I'm not.
Well, I was referring to back then.
I'm not saying that it wasn't that the person your ex was bad or anything. We're talking about where you emotionally were.
Right?
Because as women, that's a big part of us.
And I know for men, sex. They say, I've done a lot of research. They say, I mean, not in the field. I'm just saying verbal research.
Let's talk about that. No.
Stay tuned. Next week. Sure motivation.
Let's talk about the field.
What I'm saying is, what were we saying?
We were talking about how, I had said when women, as women, that's important to us. So not to say that the man was bad.
Right. My ex-husband is a great guy. And some would label him as a catch. I mean, he's a great guy. He's a good dad. And that part, I thank God for.
Same thing for me. I always tell people, if I didn't pick right for myself, I picked the right man to be a father.
Because here on Sheer Motivation Podcast, we are motivating all fathers to jump on board, and we are applauding fathers that do good things. But in both of our scenarios, we nailed that on the head. He's a great dad. Husband,
Right.
But in that space where things were going downhill, it wasn't that he was a bad partner when it came to a sexual experience. It was just that all of the things that we were dealing with were weights on our relationship.
That's what I meant. It wasn't to say, because I would say the same about my ex. I mean, he was, and I still to this day, and I've never had anything bad to say about him, and I won't have anything bad to say about him.
Right.
But, and in that department, because when it was good, and we were in the beginning and things were good, had those pockets of good, it was good. He had to write of everything and all that kind of stuff. So, but again, like I was saying, but emotionally, when we are emotionally altered, is what I'm referring to. Then it can't be good for us. Well, and let me take that back. For me and anyone who may be out there like me, I'm so it has to be, I have to emotionally be there. You know, I can't just go through the motions and I be the one that enjoy. He may be okay with the experience, but in order for me to enjoy, I have to be there emotionally. You know, if there's any conflict or something that's going on or that is negative, I can't get, you know, I can't get there.
You can't get there.
Yeah.
Some women are like that. I think I'm like that too. If something ain't right on the home front, I'm just like, what?
Exactly.
Don't touch me.
Right.
You know, but some women can separate it, you know.
Right.
But all in all, I mean, I think looking back on it now, one of the things that I can say is I'm happy, you know, that you hear the phrase all the time. It's better to have loved than never loved at all. It's better to have jumped out there and have tried. I can say I know what it's like to be a wife. I know what it's like to have a husband. I know what it's like to have missing pieces in the puzzle. And I know what it's like to be a teammate. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot as a wife. I've evolved as a mother. And my whole perspective of things that I'm looking for out of a mate has become more refined and more clear. And I would not have the same vision had I not been married and went through that whole process. So I'm grateful for that and all of the lessons that come out of it, even though it didn't end the way I wanted it to end. Even though we didn't make the marks and all of the things that we had hoped for and dreamt of, and even though we didn't make it to the promised land, I still have come out with so much experience, and I'm still grateful for it because it's helped to shape me still and refine me into the woman that I'm becoming. So I'm happy about that.
Right. Well, that's great. And so that's something that if you're going through a divorce or you're thinking about it or whatever, just like the beginning of your podcast and the topic, you'll be okay.
Yeah, you'll be okay.
You'll be fine.
You'll have those days where you'll cry. You'll question whether or not you made the right decision. You'll replay events and things that happen. If you still have the fight in you, fight for it, go for it.
Yeah, because I don't want to advocate for anyone to leave.
I don't want to advocate for you to leave, and I'm not going to advocate for you to stay.
Right.
That's a personal decision you have to arrive to.
Yeah.
And once you get there, you'll know it, though.
You know, if I've dealt with people who have gone back and forth, well, we going to divorce. And then next week when I talk to them.
But you know what? That's one of the things that I love about you.
I'm like, okay, well, we in it. Then.
And I love that. Yeah, and I love that because I remember I don't went through some stuff.
Well, we getting a divorce, so I can't take. Okay, well then when we doing this?
But you know what I love about you is that because again, we've known each other coming up on 10 years.
Okay.
And there's things that I've shared with you. It never left me and you. And I respect that. And I love that about you. And I love the fact.
You're going to make me cry on this podcast. No. We're supposed to be doing a podcast.
Maybe we can get some sound effects.
Right.
I love that. And I also love the fact that you were never judgy. You would say, hey, well, if you feel like working it out today and next week you feel like I'm out of this, then either way, I'm still rolling with you. I'm here, you know, for you. And how can I support you through this phase as your friend? And I respect that. You know, it was never a sense of, well, I mean, you don't really want to be married no more. Or why you doing that?
Why you going back and forth?
Why you going back and forth?
Right.
Well, he coming home every night. You know, it was I'm your friend and you're hurting. And I want to get down here with you and understand where you are with this. And whatever I can do to help support you through it, I'm going to support you through it. And if you arrive to a place where you're done, then okay, you're done. And if the following week you say, oh no, I want to make it work, I'm going to support you as your friend there too. And I respect that. And that's another part of life and love after divorce, is surrounding yourself with a good support system. Someone and people around you that are not taking jabs at you, that are not trying to
push you one way or
the other.
Just letting you
be a sounding board. They're a sounding board.
Letting you make that decision, being there and letting you make that decision that week. Whatever that may be.
Because next week it might be something different.
Exactly.
And that's fine too.
Letting you, because you don't, and I say that because I don't want to be the reason. That's not what a friend is there for. I don't want to be a reason to try to push you to be single. I don't want to be the reason to try to push you to keep you in a marriage. Because even though we share a lot of things, I don't know 100% of what's going on with you and in your marriage. So who am I to sit there and say, no, you need to leave him, or no, you need to stay with him? Or, who am I to say that? Because I don't know 100%. I know what you tell me, and I listen to what you tell me and give you feedback on that. But because I'm not in the house with you guys when at the end of the day or at night before you go to bed, I don't know what conversations y'all are exchanging or what he may say or not say. I don't know any of that. So how can I push you in one way or the other if I don't have that insight?
That's right.
So, it's whatever you're feeling. Maybe y'all had a conversation last night and that did something in your mind and you said, you know what, I love this man. I'm going to stay with him. And then next week he does something that was the same thing he was doing before. And you're like, you know what, he ain't never going to change.
I'm out. Okay, sis.
Okay, well, all right, then what we doing?
Right. And I can appreciate that. So those are good things to have when you're going through a good support system. If you need therapy, don't be afraid to go to therapy. Go to church or get a support group. You're not alone. Many of people have been through it. At that moment, I remember being so devastated. And one of my friends said to me, Dalena, you think you're the only person in the world going through this? And I'm like, I feel like it. Right. And so you will get through it, and that's what Sheer Motivation Podcast is, just pushing you through whatever may be on your plate and just giving you that dimension and perspective that is going to make you want to put one foot in front of the other. Yeah. And with that being said, I just want to leave our listeners with this. So, embracing God's plan for your life, even though divorce is not a part of the plan, believe that God can still bring blessings and opportunities even in the midst of pain. Move forward with God's promise and his plan for your future. I just want to, put it out there. God created marriage. He created the unity of marriage. And just because it may be on the cusp of ending doesn't mean your life is over. It doesn't mean that God still can't bless you and keep one foot going in front of the other and pray your way through it. It's not the end of the world. The sun will always come out and shine. And I appreciate you for doing this episode with me and opening up. This was fun.
Yes, it was.
I look forward to more.
Oh, okay.
And thank you guys for listening and watching to another episode of Sheer Motivation Podcast. Before you go, make sure you click that like and subscribe button. And again, you can check us out on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple Podcasts. Remember to tune in each and every week so you don't miss your dose of sheer motivation. And I will see you next week.